Hey guys, welcome back to another Souping with Friends video. Today we're gonna make Swedish meatball soup on the wood stove. For this Swedish meatball soup, first we're gonna make the meatballs. And the meatballs is basically just kind of like making a meatloaf, but you make it into balls, right? So we're gonna start with a pound of ground beef. This is organic grass-fed beef that I paid way too much money for, but we'll let that go for the moment. I need half of an onion that's minced, so we'll chop it up pretty fine here. All right, we got our pig bucket down here so that we can feed our piggos with all the scraps. That's better. And I'm gonna mince these pretty fine because they're gonna go in the meatballs. If you leave them in big chunks, and your meatballs are gonna kind of fall apart. Whew, I should have waited and did the onions at the end. That's fine. We can handle it. Okay, so I have this half an onion all minced up. We'll put it in there with our meat. Okay, we're going to do a couple cloves of minced garlic, maybe just 2. And I'm actually going to put them in my little squisher guy because we want them to be pretty fine, pretty mixed throughout all this. Okay, so we got that in there. We're gonna do a little bit of minced or chopped parsley. Put that in the pig bucket. I don't know, maybe a tablespoon, okay? We just want it to look pretty. And we'll save some more of that and use that in a little bit. I always forget when I get these new cutting boards, they don't stay on the table. So hold please, I'm gonna fix that problem right now. Okay, that should do it. Landed on the counter, it's not that exciting. Okay, so we got our parsley all finely chopped up into little tiny dusty sized pieces. Put it in there. Beep beep boop. We need an egg. This is just our water glass eggs because, as you may know, our chickens are currently freeloaders. So, got that. What else do we need? Oh, 1/3 of a cup of breadcrumbs to about 1/2 cup. It's just going to depend on how the consistency of this comes out in the end. We may adjust it a little bit. Okay, we need a teaspoon of salt. This is just some of that Redmond's livestock salt that I grind down. We have eaten it for a really long time now. Every day is our normal table salt, and we have not dyed or grown horns or tails or anything like that. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Okay. And we're going to add some grated parmesan in there, and that is going to be extra delicious. Yummy. I usually buy the big tubs of grated parmesan from Azure standard, but they are out last I ordered, so we're using the fancy expensive kind. So I don't know, maybe that's 2 tablespoons of tiny little shredded Parmesan. Okay, now we're gonna mix all this up just like you would meatloaf, right? Okay, till it's all combined. Okay, so it's all mixed up. If it had been really dry, I would have added a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in there. If it had been too wet, I would have added a little bit more breadcrumbs. But basically, you just want the meat that can stick together and make a ball. So, like, not too complicated. All right, now we just get our little cast enamel pan. We're gonna put a little olive oil in the bottom and make meatballs. Okay, we need room for 2 more. All right, you guys, scooch over for your friends. Okay, now I'm just going to put these meatballs on the wood stove, and I'll kind of watch them closely. We want to get them to brown, so we'll turn them every once in a while, and we want them to cook all the way through. If you didn't have a wood stove, you could clearly cook it on your regular kitchen stove. You would just leave it on medium, low, or medium. I'm going to go ahead and cover these because it's going to help them cook through quicker. And when I'm cooking on the wood stove, I need to think about, number one, how hot is the stove? Right now the combustor is running, so I can't really adjust the heat of the wood stove over here with this knob too quickly. I mean, it will adjust over time, but it takes a bit. So instead, I just think about where are the hot and cold zones on the stove. Of course, it's cooler to the outside, and the hottest space is right next to the chimney pipe because that's where the draw is, so that's where all the heat comes up through. So right now I'm going to keep it really close to the chimney pipe, but the further away from the chimney pipe I go, the cooler it's going to get. So every once in a while I'll come and I'll turn my pan, and then we'll have a beautiful meatball soon. I'm going to let these cook for a bit. We'll probably check in a couple times, but I'm going to get this other stuff cleared off of the wood stove because we need a little bit more cooking surface for our other pans. All right, these meatballs are done now, so I'm going to move them over into this other pan just so they can stay warm. This is the pan that we cook the meatballs in. All of the brownings and the pan drippings and all that stuff are still in there. We're going to use that in a minute to make our broth. I have our meatballs here. I don't have a lid for this pan, so I'm just going to make a little makeshift lid with a piece of tin foil just to keep it warm. Now you see it's not on the wood stove, it's on this little trivet. And that is another way that I can regulate the temperature, is I just bring it up off the stove top. This is a pan of water that we're going to use and keep heated for now because we'll cook noodles in just a minute. So I'm going to bring you over the pot and I will show you how we're going to make the broth. Okay, first a stick of butter. We're going to let that melt down a little bit. We're going to add the other half of that onion, except it's much bigger chopped now. And 3 more cloves of garlic that we're going to mince up. And a pound of sliced mushrooms. Yeah. If you didn't have a pound of mushrooms, or you didn't want to spend that much money because mushrooms are expensive, I would have just added a whole other onion and maybe some celery in there. Look at that giant mushroom. Oh, Mr. Reeve is going to be happy. And we're just going to let these saute down just for a little bit. Okay, we've got our mushrooms and onions and garlic sauteing. And we need 6 cups of stock or broth or whatever. This is that beef stock that we made the other day. Ooh. You can see it's pretty liquidy, right? So we're going to use 1 quart of beef broth, and then we need 2 more cups of something, right? Because we need 6 cups. So I wanted to show you that bone broth that we made. Look at the difference of the thickness. This was like all gooey in there. So we're going to use 2 cups of this because why not? All right, let's see if I can do this without making a mess. There it is. Look at that. La 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 la. Okay. There we go. So now we're going to let this cook down, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes until all the onions become translucent and this broth heats up as it's dripping down my hand. Okay, our water here is boiling away. So we're going to put some egg noodles in there and then we'll finish up our broth. Get in there. There you go. I don't know, that much. However much that is. 3 cups. 3 cups of dried noodles. How about that, okay? We'll get our lid back on there. Let that cook away. And now, back to our broth. All right, this is cooking down nicely. And while you were gone, I took 1.5 cups of this hot liquid and I added about 1/3 cup of flour to it. You could add cornstarch if you wanted, or you wouldn't have to add it at all if you didn't want it. It's just to help thicken it up a little bit. And I make a slurry first so that I don't end up with too many lumps. I inevitably end up with lumps anyways, but this way it's not like a mouthful of little flour balls. So there we go. We'll stir that in. And as this heats back up to boiling, that flour will make the soup thicken. Okay, now to add all the rest of the stuff. We need 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. cup of sour cream. If you didn't have the heavy whipping cream, you could just add like a cup and a half of sour cream and that would be just fine. But sour cream is really important in this recipe. And then there's one more thing that's extremely important. And that is the Worcestershire sauce. I buy it in a gallon, and so I fill up this old little, I think this was a soy sauce container. You might want to add maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons, but I add a lot because it is what like magics up the flavor of this and makes it taste like Swedish meatballs. Really extra bonus. So maybe I add 1/4 cup. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. I think I'll probably do maybe a teaspoon and a half of salt. And we really like pepper, so I'm probably going to add a whole teaspoon of pepper in here. You, of course, could add whatever you like. And I chopped up about 1/3 cup of that parsley that we had left over. We'll put that in there just for fun. And we'll give it a little taste test and see what we think. More salt. All right, I'm gonna tell you one of my cooking secrets, okay? Anytime I'm making a soup that has a beef base and I just need it to have more beef flavor, then I add Montreal steak seasoning. Okay, let's start with maybe a teaspoon of it. There's a lot of salt in it and a lot of really coarse pepper. I've tried to duplicate this recipe so that I don't have to kind of buy the commercial brand, but if you know how to make it, put it in the comments for me, because I would really like to replace it with things that kind of I already have in my pantry rather than buying a whole spice blend. So let's give it a taste now and see what we think. That's good. Still needs a little bit more salt. Now that Montreal steak seasoning has a little bit of salt, so before I added just some more plain salt, that's why I added that Montreal steak seasoning first. So I think maybe another 1/2 teaspoon of salt and we'll be there. All right, and Mr. Reeve likes things a little spicy, so I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes to this, maybe 1/2 teaspoon worth. But this would totally be optional for you, right? Ooh, if I can open it. Hi-ya! Goodness! There it goes. Hear those noodles boiling over there. Okay, so now at this point, we're gonna let this broth kind of boil in the pan here, or at least heat up so that that flour thickens, but we can go ahead and add the meatballs back to it. Now our little meatballs have been kept, ooh mama, nice and warm here on our little trivet, but they're not cooking away, right? So we can just dump them into our pan here. Try not to make a giant mess on the wood stove. Whoop. See if we can grab it. Hi-ya. Perfect. And we'll just let this simmer away over here while our noodles are cooking. All right, our noodles are done. Let's go get it dished out. All right, so we're gonna put a little bit of noodles in the bottom of the bowl. Now, if you were gonna just feed your whole big family all this meal out at one time, then you could just mix the noodles in with the soup, but we're gonna have this for leftovers, so I'm gonna keep the noodles and the soup separate. Make sure to give Mr. Reeve a couple extra meatballs. All right, now we'll just add a little bit of this Parmesan on top, just for funsies, right? And then we'll let it cool down a little bit for Mr. Reeve to do his favorite job, taste testing. How is it outside?
It's busy.
Yeah, cold
Yeah.
and snowy?
Yeah, it's not too cold. It's definitely snowy.
Yeah, you ready for some warm food?
Yeah.
All right, give it a go. You gotta make me look good, right? It's your #1 job.
You do that on your own.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're a nice man. I did the Jessica trick with the noodles.
Jessica Milnes?
Yeah.
What's the Jessica trick?
We put the noodles in the bowl so it doesn't get all soggy sitting in the soup.
Oh.
So I kept the noodles separate. And then when I put them for your lunches, you'll have like a little thing of noodles and then soup so you can mix it.
Oh, fancy.
Look at that.
Dude, look at these big old meatballs.
Yes, the big meatballs. I'm glad you're happy.
I'm excited about them. Mmm.
Yummy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good, good. And don't forget, you can win one of these soup bowl koozies. There's a giveaway and the video about shelf-stable dumplings that's in the Souping for Friends playlist. I'll link that playlist at the end. And also all the other friends that are doing Souping with Friends videos, their videos are in that playlist too, so go check everybody out. You want to keep eating now?
Yeah.
Okay, you keep eating. Thanks for watching, guys. All right, what's your favorite part?
I don't know. I love the meatballs. I love the mushrooms.
Oh yeah. I thought for sure it'd be a winner with the meatballs.
Yeah. Always a winner with the meatballs.